Hello, welcome to a new video. I don't know if I'm in focus right now. Focus, please. In this video, we're gonna be going through all of my favorite art supplies. I feel like this video is like 15 years in the making because it's taken me a really long time to sort of narrow down what are some of my favorites. And to be honest, I keep finding more art supplies that are my new favorites. I feel like narrowing down what your favorite art supplies is kind of like picking out makeup. Like there's so many different types of art supplies. There's so many different types of makeup. And the only way that you can really figure out what your favorites are and what works for you is if you try everything. And you just slowly but surely, it's expensive. It's so expensive. But if you just slowly but surely whittle it down to, okay, well, I know for sure I don't like that one. That didn't work for my eyeballs, or that didn't work for my cheeks, or whatever. I have, I think, like 3 or 4 makeup items that I've whittled down over the years. Like I'm never using anything else. Every single time I try, I'm like, this was a mistake. One second. Anyways. Where was I? See, okay, that's the thing with the ADHD. You completely lose your train of thought. Oh no. Oh man. Okay. We're going to be going through my favorite art supplies today. I have a pile of art supplies that have been on the corner of my desk for a month and a half. Just waiting for this video, the perfect moment. And I haven't had time. It's been a really busy start to the year. So now we have time. I have kind of an unexpected afternoon. We're going to roll through it. It's going to be so much fun. I'm looking forward to it. I hope you are too. Since you're here, beginning of the video, why don't we go ahead and like, comment, subscribe. Oh, it sounded so cheesy when I said that. That was awful. I know it's cliche and redundant and it's icky and all of that stuff, but it really does help. Like huge help. Yeah, leave a comment, any comment. Tell me what your favorite art supply is, or tell me if you don't paint or don't make art, tell me what your favorite type of look is. Like when you see an art supply and you're like, ooh, that looks nice. That looks fun. That looks juicy. That looks smooth. That looks textural, whatever. I like the way that looks. Tell me what yours is. Or when you see a particular type of art, what's your favorite type of art? Do you like texture? Do you like lines? Do you like abstract? I don't care. I want to know. And your girl needs comments, if we're being totally honest. Like, it's a both and kind of situation here. I'm just going to be real with you. Like, I'm not, like, straight up. I'm trying to grow this channel. I'm trying to save my art business, if I'm being really honest with you. Ooh, that sounded dark. But it's just real life, y'all. Like, we're just out here trying our best. Who knows how much of this I'm going to cut out. Trying to keep it positive. It's hard to stay positive these days, isn't it? Isn't it? It's a little hard. We're doing something. I don't know. All right. Anyway, that's all. Oof. It feels icky just saying that stuff out loud. But this is the world we live in. So I've switched my... Y'all don't care about any of that. This is so detailed. Oh my God. Is this a disaster? It might be a disaster. What are we doing here? Okay, listen. Shameless plug. I've got these artworks, these paintings behind me for sale on my website. So if you are in need of a cheerful floral painting in your space, or if you need a gift for somebody, these are smaller, so they're a small price point as well. Hit up my website. Also, I got my hair cut. I don't know when this vlog is coming out, but I got my hair cut. I think I said it in another clip, but I'm really excited about it. Really stoked. Okay, we're going to start with a big one. This is my glass palette. It has gray painted on the back. Here, I'll show you. It's just painted gray on the back. It's like scratched and scuffed and stuff. I've had it for years. There's no real benefit to having one that's colored gray on the back. Sometimes they're painted white on the back and sometimes you can get them clear. I like that this one has little rubber bumpers on the corners just because I can be a little bit clumsy and cut myself sometimes. So it's nice having that on the corners. I'm definitely not like sold on the gray background. I like it sometimes and sometimes I would prefer it be white, but it doesn't really matter. It gets the job done. It's an absolute mess right now, but that's fine because eventually I'll get sick enough of like the messiness and I'll just spray it down with water and let that sit for a while, or sometimes I'll even like soak it in water and then I'll scrape it off with a paint scraper palette, number one. Okay, my second palette is for my watercolor paints. I love this palette. It's just a cheap plastic palette from Plaza, but I love that it folds. With watercolor paints, you can reconstitute them, meaning you can spray water on them or just add water back to the dried paints, and they'll sort of like wake up and be workable again. So what I do for my watercolors is I just put the colors that I want down, and then once they've dried after a session of painting, I just close this puppy up and put it away, and you can pack it and stuff, and it's fantastic. And then when I'm ready to paint again, I just open it back up. Because they're dried to the palette, they stay, they don't like fall in on themselves. So this is my sketchbook currently. It's a moleskin. I'm not sure what type of moleskin it is. It's one of the art moleskin books. Maybe a mixed media or a drawing one maybe. The pages can take wet media, like you can see there's a page of wet media. Like this is a wet media page and it did just fine. This one was all acrylic and it did great. So it does work for wet media and I've really enjoyed it. I like the small scale of it. It's about a 5x7, maybe a little bit larger. And then I like this aspect too, where it has a little elastic guy to keep it shut. So yeah, favorite sketchbook so far. This is another moleskin. This one is actually a watercolor moleskin. This is a hack that I made for myself a few years ago, where I use this sketchbook just for paint mixing recipes. I was having a really hard time remembering what I needed to mix together to get certain colors that I enjoyed. And so I just started writing them down. So when I find a color that I like, if I've just made it, I paint it in the book and then I write down what it is that I used in order to get that color. So, yellow ochre and a neon green, super fun color. White, yellow ochre, and gray is one of my favorite colors to use. I love that sort of off-white color. Just a little hack. I do this in my moleskin watercolor sketchbook. So I've still got a bit to go, but I reference this thing all the time. So highly recommend. Okay, last up I want to show you my favorite watercolor paper. I use Arches. It's just a really nice cotton paper. It comes in different weights. This one in particular is a 140 pound. It's a little pliable. It's not crazy thick, which is nice because you can do like a drawing underneath it and see through with a light table. I use another one from Arches. I think it's a 300 pound. It's way thicker. It's very, very sturdy. And that one is really nice because you can paint with a lot of watercolor or acrylics and oils, no big deal. But you can't transfer with a drawing underneath it with a light table like you can with the 140 pound. So that's just something to keep in mind if you're wanting to look for this paper. Okay, first let's talk about brushes. These are my favorite brushes. Most of them are Princeton. This one is a Winsor & Newton paintbrush, which Newton. This one is a Winsor & Newton paintbrush, which I also love. It's kind of stiff and creates a nice texture. If I want to paint really loose, I'll use this one. For most of my paintings, I use either a square, flat bright brush, like one of these, or I'll use a round brush. But honestly, for the most part, I would say that these right here are the ones that I use the most. But all of these, even the round brushes here, and the different sort of levels of, like, these green ones are more expensive. The red one is kind of a medium expensive, and the blues are a little bit less expensive, but it doesn't matter. They're all Princeton brushes, and I love Princeton brushes. Absolutely love them. Can't get enough. So, highly recommend those. I painted this with those brushes, the green ones. Pretty much everything in my sketchbook that's painted, I've done with those. That was painted with those. That was done with those. And then this was painted with those as well. I love Sharpies. I use these all the time. This is my favorite pen of all time, like just for regular writing, is just a Sharpie pen, the fine felt tip. It's designed to not bleed through like your sort of classic Sharpies do. And I can't get enough of this pen. I buy it all the time and I use it all the time. That was done with a Tombow, which is my favorite art pen. It's a Tombow brush pen. I absolutely love it. Let's see if I can get it to focus. All right, so Tombow brush pen. Absolutely love it. You can usually find it in art supply stores. I also like these colored Sharpie pens, the red and the blue. So this is one with the Sharpie, the red pen. And then this was done with the Sharpie pen, and then the thicker areas were done with the Tombow brush pen. I like it because it's a little bit more gestural. I like that I got a little bit of line variance. Okay, next up, let's talk about pencils. I use pencils a lot in my work. I use them to sketch things out, and I also use them to do finishing marks on some of my paintings. I'll show you guys in a sec. But with larger pieces, I often will use a carpenter's pencil. This one is a medium, but I actually prefer a soft. It also kind of depends on what you're actually drawing on, but generally I prefer a soft one. And then I'll use this guy to sketch, which is just a regular HB pencil, just like a whatever pencil. And then the Graph Gear 500 is another favorite. I really like the grip on it. It's kind of weighted, which is nice, and I prefer the 0.9. It's a much thicker pencil lead, which is just what I have found that I prefer for drawing, whether it's for sketching or if it's for finishing work as well. This is actually another, it's not a Graph Gear, I'm not sure what brand this is, but it's another 0.9. I don't love this one as much because it doesn't have that nice weighted grip on it, but I like the color. It's really cute. So, and it's a 0.9, which is all I really care about. And then this one is a 4B pencil. As you can see, I've used it quite a lot. I use this one mostly for finishing work because it's softer than your standard pencil, the HB. So since it's softer, that means that it's going to apply the graphite more easily. It's going to be maybe a little bit darker. And I like it for my paintings, the finishing work in my paintings, because I get a much more bold pencil mark. Whereas if I used this one, I'd have to press down a lot harder to get the same effect. Here we go. This is a good example of some finishing marks. So like these outlines and whatnot, as well as this one has some good finishing marks. So all of these lines, these more bold lines, were done with this guy. So you can see it just adds a little something. This is very, very much something that I do. And like the shading and stuff, I'll do the shading with this softer pencil. Okay, since we're here on this page, let's talk about colored pencils. Since I was in high school, I've used Prismacolors. I'm not sure if there are better ones out there. this is just what I've always used. So take that with a grain of salt. These pieces were done with colored pencils and I really enjoy them. So yeah, that's the whole story. These, I will say, are another favorite sketching implement. These are both Ticonderogas that you find in like Staples and other office supply stores. They're erasable and they're really soft and nice. So I think this helps you see the variation a little bit more. You can see around the bill, I applied more pressure and got a really nice dark line, but then I was also able to get the details here without having to be so delicate and light. That's what I like about these. They're really waxy. The feel of them is so nice. So if you want a good sketching pencil that you can erase and that is just a pleasure to use and gives you a lot of variation very easily, highly recommend the Ticonderogas. I forgot to mention this Sharpie pen. The Ultra Fine Point is a classic sort of Sharpie, but I just really enjoy using it. I will say I don't think that they're archival, so that is something to keep in mind when you're making artwork. But if you're just like playing around in your sketchbook or doing stuff that doesn't need to be archival, then Sharpies are great. Speaking of archival, instead of using microns, I've never really enjoyed microns, but I use the Winsor & Newton equivalent of a micron. I like the really big fat ones. Like this one is a 0.8 and I love these things. I feel like they last a lot longer than a micron, and I feel like they also apply the pigment better than the microns as well. Kneaded eraser. Love a kneaded eraser. Kneading the eraser like this, just sort of pulling it apart and then squishing it back together, helps to distribute the graphite that you've just erased. So instead of it building up on to the eraser, it just kind of gets reabsorbed back into whatever the substance is. I'm not sure. But I prefer to use these when I'm traveling. I can take just a small piece of it, and since you can knead it so that the graphite isn't like getting smudged and smeared everywhere, it tends to keep my work and my pencil bag much neater and tidier, which I like. Speaking of, if I'm not worried about getting the schmutz on everything, then I like to use just a regular pink eraser, just for sort of whatever. Trusty travel sharpener. I'm not married to this brand or type or anything. All I really care about is that it has a vessel. Trusty palette knife. This is a Liquitex brand. I bought this in college and I've only had this one, and I've only used this one for my entire career. As you can see, it has seen some times and I love it. Lately I've been trying these oil sticks, pigment sticks from R&F. I found some really big fat ones. They're kind of like oil pastels. They're just really large. And let me show you an example. I just got a few colors, so I haven't made anything like a full piece yet, but I've really enjoyed them. I love the way that they feel. They're very buttery and smooth and really pleasant and fun to use. So I'm looking forward to using them on larger work here soon. Next up we have Poscas. I love Poscas. I remember one of my friends was like, what's the deal with Poscas? How come everybody is obsessed with them? They're just like a regular paint marker. And I totally feel that. They are just a regular paint marker, but what I have found is that they don't smell as intense as a normal paint marker to me. And I love the colors that they have. It may not look like much on screen, but it makes a big difference. So this piece over here was done with Poscas, and then I did graphite on the edges. They're just a pleasure to work with. They feel nice. So whenever I'm doing an underpainting, like the beginning stages of a painting, I'll usually use the, this is an Amsterdam brand, I guess. Sometimes I'll use Liquitex, has some as well. They're just like your more basic, less expensive paints. The reason that I try not to use these for like the later half stages of a painting is because these don't have as high of a pigment load. So they're not going to be as bright, as bold as if you're using something like this, which is the golden acrylics. Golden is kind of the golden standard, if you will, of acrylic paint. They're wicked expensive, but for good reason, because they tend to have a much higher pigment load than like your Liquitex. Unfortunately, with art supplies, you kind of get what you pay for in terms of pigment. So I definitely am not a believer in like, and people say this all the time, I don't think that your fancy art supplies make you a better artist. But if you are a professional artist, then I think it's beneficial to be using professional grade paints. So that's that. Golden is my favorite. It's also the brand that's the easiest to access for me here in the States. I know there's a brand called Matisse, I believe. And there are a couple other brands that are in other countries that have really high pigment loads. I'm spacing on what they are right now, but I know Matisse is another one. But for here in the States, Golden is a good brand. Liquitex is also good. I think they have like a higher quality level. I think they have like a standard level. Another little hack is when I'm mixing up paints that aren't normally in the, like just straight out of the tube, I'll put them in these little condiment to go containers, and it seals them, it keeps them wet for longer, and then I can use them for several weeks sometimes. So that's just a little hack. Use to-go containers. This year I would like to switch to using glass containers instead of plastic, but I was in kind of a bind when I grabbed these, so I just grabbed what I could find. Another hack is a spray bottle. I use the spray bottle I'll spray these guys to keep them wet, and I'll also spray my palette when I'm using acrylics, or I'll spray my watercolor palette to reconstitute my watercolors. Another hack is using these guys for straight lines. You don't have to have it, but as you can see, these are straight lines, and I just used these guys to make those marks. That's kind of a bad example, but it's just the only one that I have. I wouldn't use this if you need a really, really crisp line. In that case, I would tape it off, but if you just need something quick to lay down and paint your straight edge, then I would use one of these. A couple other favorite brushes that are not Princeton brand are, this one is a Yasutamo from Plaza, and it's got a really, really soft bristle brush. It's just really, really nice and pleasant. I like to use this for washes. And then I also really love a chip brush from the hardware store. I use these things all the time. This one is like super broken, but I don't care. I just keep using it and keep trying to repair it. I love these things. They're really textured. You can get them really big. I have a few over there that I'm not going to grab right now, but I think this is one of those classic, it doesn't have to be an expensive art supply for it to be really useful and really helpful in the studio. These things are literally like $1 or $2 at the hardware store, and I absolutely love them. I use them all the time. I also have to shout out this little guy from SmartFit. I just found this at Plaza, but it's a little pencil case. It even has a space here to hold an eraser. There's an eraser in it right now. You put your pencils and whatnot in here. A normal size pencil will fit in it when it's like this. You can also open it up. You can do this, and then you have a flat. It's so fun. The only thing I will say is it's that really nice sort of soft plastic or soft rubber feel, which feels awesome and amazing, and I love it, but it collects a lot of dust and schmutz from the world. So it's the only thing that I would have to say about it, but it's so cute, and I love the functionality of this here. Like, you can put your art supplies in it and then just pop it down. Careful they don't fly out. I mean, it's wonderful. And then close it up and you're done. So definitely recommend this guy. I got mine at Plaza. And then I will also shout out this guy. It's just a little pouch that my friend Anne-Marie made for me many years ago, and I really like it because what I can do is put my art supplies in it. It's like nice and sort of soft and pliable. So I put my art supplies in it, zip it up, and then I can fold it and wrap it like this, and it goes nicely in a small bag. I will also sometimes put my sketchbook directly in it, and then I'm ready to go with my art supplies and my sketchbook. Okay, last up is watercolor. Professional Winsor & Newton watercolors in the little itty bitty tubes. These actually last forever. I have had some of my tubes of paint for 7 years, and they're still going strong. This is what I do with them. They are so wonderful and so nice. It was actually a Winsor & Newton gouache that I put on the background, which gives it that sort of matte look, which I like. But this is all the watercolors. And then I finished it with, so I used the Winsor & Newton pen to get the line work done. And also I will say they make a gray version of this. This is a black one, but they also make a gray, and so you can get these really nice, really light brush marks, or pen marks, if you will. And then some of that is paint too, like some of these fatter, like thicker areas are done in paint, but the really itty bitty lines that are lighter in color than the really sort of bold edges and whatnot, that was all done with a Winsor & Newton gray. So, whoop, it won't focus. All right. So that's it. Honestly, those are all of my favorite art supplies. Okay, I just realized that I forgot 2 very important art supplies that I need to mention. 1, workable fixative. Workable fixative is what I spray on my paintings when I'm done drawing on them. Whether that is drawing on the canvas before I even start painting, or if I draw on the canvas throughout the process, then I will stop and I'll apply workable fixative after I've done the drawing. So once you spray the workable fixative, the pencil will not smudge again. Number 2, I love this stuff, the satin varnish from Liquitex. I like to put a varnish on top of my paintings. It just protects them from sunlight and dust and that kind of stuff. This is really nice, especially for smaller work. Usually for a larger painting, I'll use a brush-on varnish, but for the smaller paintings, it's nice to be able to just lay these out on a piece of drop cloth and spray them down and know that they are safe from sunlight and safe from dust, and even the little guys are going to be protected. So satin varnish and workable fixative, 2 things that I use in the studio all the time. All right, that's it. Bye. That was something. It was way more hectic than I thought it was going to be, but here we are. I hope you liked the video. I hope it was helpful to you in some way, perhaps inspiring. Let me know what your favorite art supply is. Don't forget to subscribe before you leave, and go check out my Patreon as well. I hope to be able to start providing some more physical rewards and also possibly bookmarks. It would be a lot of fun to do a monthly bookmark reward for Patreon. All right, that's all. I hope you guys are doing well, and I'll see you in the next video. Okay, bye.